Hey kids, it's me, Sean O'Noah. Happy Astrophysics Friday. You ever wonder how a big ball of gas we call the sun got in the sky? You ever wonder how long it'll last? You ever wonder how this big yellow guy gives us enough heat to massacre multiple generations of ants? Well, today we're going to be talking about the life of the sun. Attention class! So you want to know how babies are made? Well, like humans, it takes place in a cold, dusty area that hasn't seen light in quite some time. This cold, dusty molecular cloud of gas in interstellar space is where it all begins. When it gets cold enough that the gravity of the cloud becomes stronger than the pressure can hold back, the cloud will contract. When it shrinks, it produces a lot of energy in the form of heat, and since the gas is getting so dense due to the shrinking, the heat cannot easily escape the core. The object I am describing is what fancy people call a protostar, with proto meaning primitive, and star meaning star. So when does it officially become a star? Well, it depends on the mass. The more mass, the faster stuff will go. Imagine this. If you left a lighter and a flamethrower going with the same amount of fuel, your house would burn down. But you'd also notice that the flamethrower goes through its fuel a lot faster than the lighter. In the case of the protostar, the more mass, the faster it will get hot enough to become a star, which for the sun took about 30 million years. And this isn't hot like the mixtape you claim would put Post Malone to shame. This heat is around 10 million Kelvin, or enough to sustain hydrogen fusion. When it begins hydrogen fusion, the star gets its star badge and diploma, as it is officially a main sequence star. Hey, I heard that. I heard you think, what is the main sequence? The main sequence is a stage that all stars begin as in their lifetime, and they spend about 90% of their lives here. The sun has been a main sequence star for 5 billion years now, and it will continue for another 5 billion or so, getting slightly hotter over time. So the sun's not old enough that you'd put them in a nursing home, but they definitely use their index finger to type on their phone. While being a main sequence star, the sun fuses hydrogen into helium in its core. This fusion from hydrogen to helium produces a lot of energy since the mass of hydrogen is larger than the output helium, and the loss of mass comes out in energy, which heats the sun. While this is going on, there's a nice balance of gravity and pressure, which keeps the sun from expanding, and us from becoming freshly toasted Homo sapiens. When it runs out of hydrogen to fuse, the pressure produced from the fusion ceases and the core of the sun will shrink from gravity. At this point, the core is pure helium, and there is a shell of hydrogen around it from the old core. However, the outer layers of the sun didn't get the memo, and they start expanding. This is because when the outer core started to shrink, it got really, really hot. It began hydrogen fusion in the shell, or hydrogen shell fusion. The pressure generated was stronger than gravity, and caused the previously mentioned expansion. The stage the sun is about to enter is called a red giant. For about 1 billion years, the sun will be expanding. It'll peak at a radius of 100 times larger than it currently is, along with becoming 1,000 times brighter. Needless to say, the Earth will be looking a little tanner right about now, with measly surface temperatures around 1,000 Kelvin. After the sun is done expanding for those 1 billion years, the core will reach a temperature of about 100 million Kelvin, and then the helium in its core will begin fusing into carbon for 100 million years. It's less efficient than hydrogen fusion, and it speeds through its helium like kids rushing through the cereal aisle, debating over Cocoa Puffs and Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like before, the sun eventually runs out of fuel for the core. The core shrinks from gravity, and the outside layer swells up from the incredible resulting heat. Now we have what is called a double shell giant, because the core is made of carbon, then there's a layer of helium shell fusion, then a layer of hydrogen shell fusion. However, as the core is so small and the outer layers rapidly expand, these outer layers lose grip with the core and are ejected outward. The now exposed core, still incredibly hot, emits terrifying amounts of UV radiation, which makes the ejected shell glow. Despite having nothing to do with the planets, we named this a planetary nebula because it looked like a planet to our crappy 18th century telescopes, and also because we wanted every cocky astronomy student who didn't study to get it wrong on their exams. The planetary nebula will glow for at most 100,000 years, but then it will fade and leave behind a white dwarf about the size of Earth. This is generally what we'd consider the last stage of a star like the Sun, as it will remain a white dwarf for no fewer than about 10 to the 27th times the age of the universe if undisturbed. So if you ever think you're the scum of the Earth and you'll die a lonely death, perhaps you can relate to the Sun. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Sean O'Nella, and thank you for watching.